Folks, back in 2013, Scott Moore and I made a slap bet. Scott bet that the film World War Z would near $1 billion worldwide before it finished its theatrical run, and I, of course, opposed that belief. By the time the smoke settled, I was victorious, and I hold that smack dearly in my heart, waiting for the most opportune time. However, for this topic of the Mishmash podcast, Scott Moore will have the chance for redemption, and I will have the chance to double down, because we're playing the Rotten Tomatoes game. The rules are simple. I have listed all the films coming out in March this year, and in this video, both of us will guess what the percentage of that film will be. Neither of us can predict the future, but let's go ahead and see how close we can get. The first movie coming out is Red Sparrow. I don't know if you've heard about this movie, but the film stars Jennifer Lawrence and is from the director who brought us the last 3 Hunger Games films. A brief premise of the film suggests a Russian spy who falls in love with a CIA officer and considers becoming a double agent.
So I have seen the previews for this, and with Jennifer Lawrence, you would think that it's going to be okay, but then again, I think she's turning into the modern-day Scarlett Johansson, so I'm not really sure that that's actually going to be the case.
That's weird, because I'm pretty sure Scarlett Johansson's the modern-day Scarlett Johansson.
No,
they kind of came out in the same time.
No, wait, Scarlett's already done. Like, her career's already halfway finished. And
but
I feel
she's
like
just
Jennifer
now getting the Black Widow movie, so I feel like her career's...
Yeah, but I feel like she's, like, quite a bit older than Jennifer Lawrence. And even if she's not, it feels like she is. Like, it feels like she's been around for a lot more. So they could possibly be pretty close to the same age, which I don't think they are. But I feel like Jennifer Lawrence is, like, where Scarlett Johansson... where people thought she was going to be a breakthrough actress and that she was going to be great. And it turns out she's just a mediocre actress who has sometimes good roles. And I think that's what we're going to see with Red Sparrow. It looked like it was an interesting premise, but I also know that these movies don't do very well in the box office scores or in ratings in general. So we might see a higher Rotten Tomatoes score, but I don't think we're going to see an overall good movie.
It's interesting. I think that Jennifer Lawrence is a capable actress, and as I mentioned, it's directed by the same guy that brought us the last 3 Hunger Games. That's not that big of a compliment for him, because although I think that Catching Fire was a great film, I thought it was very, very good. The last 2 Mockingbird movies were awful.
I didn't even watch the last one because the one previous to the last was so bad that I didn't even watch it. And plus I read the 3 books, and I knew that the 3rd book was just not on par with the first 2, so I knew that the movie was going to suffer. And then whenever they split it into 2, I was like, well, this is going to be ridiculous, because there wasn't even enough to keep me interested whenever it was 1 book. So how are they going to keep me interested in 2 movies? So yeah, I didn't even bother watching the last one.
And then whenever you look at Jennifer Lawrence's, before, she used to be very, very critically adored, as you said. People thought she was going to be this great actress. I still think she's very good. But her last few roles haven't been that successful for her. For instance, X-Men Apocalypse was a critical failure. It's X-Men, of course, so it's not really, you can't really blame her for it. But even her film Mother, which had a lot of attention, it was like smack dab in the middle. Some people loved it, some people hated it. And with that, I think that I'd probably say I predict this film will get a 55%, if that.
I'm going to go a little bit higher just because of the whole entire Jennifer Lawrence aspect of it. I think that she's going to draw in some people. I think that the idea and the premise is okay. I do not think they're going to capitalize on it. I think it's going to be a crappy movie, but I think that it's going to get a 58%. So I'm going 5% higher.
Not getting me much wiggle room here.
5% higher is what I'm going. No, not much wiggle room, but 5% higher.
How is that 5% higher?
You got 53, right?
I said 55.
Oh, you said 55. I thought you said 53. Okay, so only 3% higher. Yeah, I'm not giving you much wiggle room. I'm going 58%, and I'm going on the dot. 58%, that is what it will be on Rotten Tomatoes.
And then for the second one, this one is a movie called Death Wish. I don't know if you've heard about this one. This film, Death Wish, is a remake of a 1974 film of the same name, and is directed by Eli Roth, and stars Bruce Willis in the lead role. A brief premise of this film is that it involves a doctor turned vigilante seeking justice when his wife is murdered and his daughter is brutally attacked. For some of you that don't know, maybe I'll just go ahead and go through the tape. I don't really think that I need to tell you who Bruce Willis is. I think pretty much everyone's pretty comfortable in that regard. But looking back for Eli Roth, you maybe have seen him in Inglourious Bastards. He had a role in that film. But as a director, he's known for Cabin Fever, Hostel, The Green Inferno, Knock Knock. So he's definitely a middling kind of director. But some people like him, some people hate him.
So with this movie, and just having seen the poster for it and things like that. And knowing who Eli Roth is, he's kind of a perturbed, disgusting kind of director. Some of his more famous films have been like cult flicks of mass murder where people weren't even sure that's the same.
Like there's definitely a reason he's in like Inglourious Bastards in that movie because Quentin Tarantino took a liking to him because he kind of has that grindhouse aesthetic.
Right. And that's what I was getting ready to go on. Like, this is going to be more of a grindhouse film. It's not going to be the more serious, what you're looking for, like a detective or somebody going out and looking for the murder. You're going to see that grindhouse style effect, which has not gone over well with audiences. I don't remember anybody saying anything good about Robert Rodriguez's or Quentin Tarantino's movies. Matter of fact, I remember most of it being negative.
Yeah, I wouldn't go that far. I wouldn't say that it's going to be straight up grindhouse, which incidentally, it's like a side story. I don't think it'll be quite that level, because as you said, Eli Roth's kind of known for the more disturbed kind of material, but at the same time, if you've seen movies like Knock Knock, he's capable of a more, not necessarily Hollywood polish, a more focused approach that's not focused on gore. And I think that this will probably play more like that. I don't know if it'll necessarily play out like a standard vigilante film, but I could see it doing so.
So, with that said, with my opinion going that it's going to be an under the radar movie that hardly anybody's going to watch, I'm going to give it a 33.
And actually, if less people did watch it, that only worked to its benefit because that would mean that the only people that watch it are the ones that want to see it. So that could even help its percentage. And with your percentage, it's funny because I'm actually going to go lower than that. I think it's going to get a 20%. And that's because I don't like Eli Roth. I think that Green Inferno was horrible. I thought Knock Knock was horrible. I mean, I liked Hostel. I liked Hostel 2. But lately, he has just been like losing me in terms of interest. So I'm going to say 20%.
That's a 13% difference. That's some wiggle room right there.
And then the third film in this is A Wrinkle in Time, starring future President Oprah Winfrey, alongside names like Zach Galifianakis and Reese Witherspoon. This Disney-produced adaptation of a 1962 novel follows an astrophysicist held captive on a distant planet deep on the cusps of a universe-spanning evil, leaving Meg Murray alongside her intelligent little brother, aside several others, to try and save him.
All I gotta say about this movie is Oprah Winfrey.
Our president. Future president.
Future President Oprah Winfrey. All I have to say is that I think that she's going to draw in a bunch of viewers and a bunch of audience. And I think that what we're going to see is what we saw out of things like Get Out and things like that, where the cultural phenomena is to go forth and say, like, hey, the movie was okay, it wasn't bad, so I think we're going to get a really high rating out of this one. I think just because of the way that it would go, nobody wants to be the person to say that the movie wasn't very good. Because I didn't like Get Out. I thought it was a bad movie. And
I really enjoyed Get Out.
And one of the things is I didn't think that any of the reviewers wanted to be that guy who said, hey, I didn't like it. It was kind of boring. It didn't have a lot
But I don't really think that is going to apply with this film. Because I don't really think that its driving factor is... With Get Out, for instance... It seemed very, very much like the center of it was on race. And for instance, something like Black Panther, which recently came out.
Which I hear is an amazing movie.
Yeah, I have heard nothing but great things. I'm actually hoping to see it tomorrow. That film, it's not focused necessarily on race, but people going into it, there's the fact that it falls in Black History Month, that it's got a predominantly black cast. With this film, A Wrinkle in Time, I don't think that's the going consensus or what people are thinking about.
I'm not thinking about race in this one. I'm actually thinking about women and how they are standing. Yeah, so that my idea wasn't race on this movie. I was just equating it to kind of like the common stance of who's going to be that first guy.
So you think that it's kind of like a Wonder Woman kind of aesthetic, that this is going to be seeing a main protagonist that's female.
Right, and then you're going to have that and hold it up because you don't want to be that first person to say it's bad. And hey, the movie might be great. I don't know.
I don't think that it will be. And
I honestly don't either. Whenever I've seen some Oprah Winfrey movies, I've never been really impressed. But hey, it may. So I'm going to say that on just Rotten Tomatoes score and the way they equate everything, it's going to get a high. I think it's going to be in the upper 80s. I will say 87, just to like kind of put it.
I think that this film is going to not be a huge box office success. For starters, I don't think it's going to be a huge box office success. I think that it is going to go out with a whimper more than anything. I'm thinking like a Tomorrowland kind of whimper. I'm thinking that this movie might be a 65% approval rating. And that's what I'm thinking with it.
Wow, that's a 20% difference. Well, 22% difference. So we got a huge array on that one.
And this one I think that we're going to probably come together on a little bit more. This is number 4, and this one is The Strangers Pray at Night. A sequel to the 2008 film, The Strangers Pray at Night follows a family that gets stranded in a deserted mobile home and is stalked by 3 masked individuals. For an assist, the previous Strangers film received a 45% on Rotten Tomatoes. I want to go on record and just say I did not like the first Strangers film, but one thing I did like about that film is a line that was said in it that I just thought was fantastic. At one point in it, and for those that don't know, as it kind of suggests from here, these people break into this family's house and they just start massacring them and like torturing them. But at one point, a woman screams, or maybe it wasn't a woman, I can't remember. They're like, "Why us? Why us?" And then the person says back to them, "Because you were home." And I just think that is the best, one of the best horror lines you can ever use because it just makes it say, you're not special, you're not unique at all. You're just, if you wouldn't have been here, I would have just knocked on the next door and started torturing them. And I think that's pretty cool, but I don't like the movie.
So whenever I first watched, I watched it, but when I first saw the concept of it, I was like, this is really neat. You know what it really reminds me of? Kind of a In Cold Blood aspect, where the family is just mutilated and they're held captive, and you don't really get a lot of backstory about the people. They're just psychotic. They are serial killers who have walked into this home and then found reasons to kill these people. And really, like you said, there was nothing special about it. In Cold Blood, they had an idea that there was treasure in the basement. Now, I don't know that that was actually a real concept, or if they were just driving by that house, and that so happened to be the lucky winner. And so I liked that in the idea that it did seem like they were psychotic, and it was almost a touch on a real massacre or a real serial killer. Like when the BTK killer talked about how he would go through the neighborhoods and just kind of pick somebody, and he didn't care. It wasn't a matter of, well, I want this person because of this. He actually talks about one time that he scoped out 2 different homes, and if one of them wasn't home, he was just going to go to the other one, and that was okay.
It kind of reminds me of what the initial intention was for the first Halloween movie. Because for those that don't know, of course, in Halloween 2, it's revealed that Laurie Strode was targeted by Michael Myers because they were related, right? That's what they did with that. But in the first Halloween, they weren't related. That wasn't the reason he targeted him. He was just supposed to be evil incarnate, and he just found her and then focused on her for no reason at all. And I think that's a special thing. That's one thing that I liked about those movies. But what did you think about The Strangers after you saw it?
So after I saw it, it just kind of melded into all of the other horror films that I've ever watched. It became boring and it became over the top. And one of the things I really hate about horror is how the victim is able to kind of just disturb everything that ever happens. Like, in reality, this isn't happening. Once you're tied up and all that stuff, it's usually pretty much over. Now, there is wild things that could happen. I'll bring up the BTK killer again. He had a victim that got away. It was a male victim that he thought he had tied up, and while he was busy with another victim that he had in the other room, they got up, grabbed a gun, shot at him, and he was unable to re-tie him up, and the guy ran away. Like, he thought he was dead. He had shot him twice. He thought he was dead. The guy got up and ran down the street. BTK killer lost him. Like, that was it. Okay, I can understand that. Whenever this all just happens to fall into the right, line for these victims, it becomes to where you're like, okay, I've fallen out. I can't follow the story anymore because it's too fake. I can't follow it. I'm not even worried anymore because I know who's going to survive. I know who's not going to survive. And I think that's one of the major problems with horror is that going into the movie, you already know who's not dying. And
I think there's a problem, not just with horror, but in movies in general, there's a certain, with a lot of mainstream movies at least, there's a certain predictability. Like if you watch an action movie, you know that it's going to lead with the good guy
the
conquering
character armor,
everything.
the character armor.
Yeah. Which is why I like movies like Michael Haneke's Funny Games. It's actually, I think it's on Netflix. It was another home invasion film I'd seriously recommend. But for The Strangers Prey at Night, I would say 20%.
I'm going to
And,
go even lower, and I'm going to say 13%.
and the thing is, I was being generous, and the reason I'm being generous is because I'm thinking about how very few people are going to see this film. It is not. This movie actually is coming 10 years after the fact, right? So this movie is not going to get a wide release in theaters. So the only people that are going to watch it are going to be the people that actually go out of their way to see it in limited release. So the critics are probably going to give it a heightened percentage. Like, for instance, if you look at Curse of Chucky's a bad movie. It has an 80% on Rotten Tomatoes because nobody watched it. And I think that's what we're going to see right now with this one is it's not going to get like an 80%, but I'm thinking maybe get a little higher with a 20%. And so that's what I think. And for the fifth one, Tomb Raider. And I think this is actually one I'm interested in. This reboot of the Tomb Raider series looks as though it will attempt a more serious approach than the previous adaptations, drawing inspiration more from the newer Tomb Raider video game installments, following Lara Croft in her first ever expedition, looking to complete her father's research.
I don't think this is going to be the breakout video game that we are still waiting for. Like, I don't believe that Lara Croft's Tomb Raider is that video game movie that we're like, there it is. It's broke the wall. It's a good movie. We can separate it and we can move on. I don't think that we're going to see that from this movie.
And what's sad is I don't either. And the reason is not because of what I'm seeing in the trailers. It's not because I think that the film looks bad. It's because I'm jaded and I have been burned before. I think that this movie looks as though it takes a lot of inspiration from the video games. It looks like a very faithful adaptation. Another film that looked like a very faithful adaptation and looked like it had everything going for it. Assassin's Creed.
What the weird thing is that when you said that, I actually had my phone out and I was looking at it, and the reason I was doing that is because I was looking up to see what Rotten Tomatoes had scored Assassin's Creed, because
Yeah.
I'm just going to actually copy that.
That's actually
and say that it's going to get an 18% because that's exactly what Assassin's Creed got.
I'm going to give it a little boost. The thing is, that was actually my mindset as well, but I doubled it. Or not necessarily doubled it, practically doubled it. I was thinking maybe it would get a little boost. It has a female protagonist, and I think that is going to assist it in this regard. Because it looks like about the closest thing you can get from another Wonder Woman type character. And I think that it's going to have a lot of goodwill because of that. And I'm not thinking it's going to be the first good the first good video game film adaptation, but I'm thinking it will get a 40% and it'll do good enough at the box office that it will justify a sequel. So that's what we're thinking for the first 5 films. Check out our next video where we look at another 5 films, 6 through 10 of March's 2018 releases. Thanks for watching this. You're watching the Mishmash Podcast, and we'll see you next time.